Our first reader today will be Kay Hardy Campbell, a lifelong student of the Arabic language, culture, history, and music. Kay majored in Arabic at the university and lived in Saudi Arabia for several years. She writes about Arab culture for Aramco World magazine and is a director of the Arabic Music Retreat. On her first visit to Morocco, she felt instantly drawn to the Medina of Fez, sensing that history was very near. Kay, take it away.
Thank you, Elaine. Good morning, everyone. I'm so delighted to be here. Thank you for the invitation. I'm sure you know about some of the major cities of Morocco, like Casablanca and Marrakesh. There's also Rabat, the political capital, but most importantly, to my heart, is Fez, which is considered the spiritual capital of Morocco. The premise of my book, The Sons of Fez, A Time Travel Adventure in Morocco, is that there's a summer Arabic program, of which, by the way, there are many that set up in Morocco. And this particular Arabic program draws students from all over the world, and they travel around Morocco while they study Arabic. Fez is unique in that its old city, like many Arab cities, it has an old city, which is called the Medina. This Medina is a UNESCO World Heritage Site, and inside the walls of the Medina, there are no motorized vehicles allowed. And in this story, the students arrive in Fez as the last stop on their journey, and they are staying there for 3 weeks. And they're staying in what's called a riad, which is an old mansion. And in this case, it's been repurposed into a hotel or a guest house for all the students to stay. So this takes place on their first night in Fez, what I'm going to read to you. And they're outside the riad, alongside, there's a little alleyway where there's a strange beggar woman that sits all day underneath a stone arch. The setting is on the flat walled roof of the riad, which is common for these buildings to have these flat walled roofs where you can go and enjoy the cool night air. So let me begin. After supper, the group gathered on the rooftop. While they drank mint tea and ate orange slices sprinkled with cinnamon, Ibrahim, the tour director, and Dr. Charles, the Arabic program director, introduced everyone to Khalid, the manager of the riad. Khalid told them a bit about the neighborhood and passed out simple maps of the Medina in case they get lost. After he was done, Dr. Charles took a deep breath and said, "One last announcement. As you know, when you signed up for this trip, you agreed to surrender all your electronic devices during our stay in Fez." A collective groan rose from the crowd. Like everyone else, Barbara had forgotten about the clause in the program agreement they'd all signed. "We will store your devices in the hotel safe. The day after your last exam, you'll get them back." Dr. Charles continued, "Remember, Fez is a unique and historic place. We believe that while you're here, nothing should come between you and your surroundings. In the Medina, you can actually converse in classical Arabic with any shopkeeper. And in class, we don't want you recording. Learn directly from your ears and your handwriting the way humans have learned languages for thousands of years. This way, you'll be better prepared for the final exam, which is in 3 weeks." Dr. Charles waited for verbal protests, but got only groans, sighs, and shaking heads. "Remember, this is the only intact medieval Arab city in the world. We want you to experience your days here directly, without digital interference. Professor Maureen and I will be collecting all the devices you listed when we arrived in country." Though all the students had known this was coming, it seemed to Barbara, who was an undergrad studying Arabic, that she was upset about turning in her phone and tablet. But she realized that she'd stopped taking pictures and checking messages and social media since their second day on a recent desert trip. She realized that it wasn't so bad to be disconnected from the outside world. Once all the devices were turned in and registered, Khalid and his staff carried the bags full of them down to the hotel safe. As soon as they disappeared down the staircase, 2 loud drum beats rang out from another rooftop entrance. A line of 10 drummers paraded out onto the patio. Dressed in white jalabas with red tasseled tarbooshes on their heads, they held frame drums in front of them at shoulder height as they pounded out a catchy, complicated rhythm. Barbara jumped up and swayed in place, dropping her shoulders to catch the rhythm of the syncopated beats. Others joined her in dancing and clapped with enthusiasm. The drummers smiled and laughed, enjoying the effect their surprise entrance had on the students. The drummers ended the jam with a flourish, and the students set up a cheer. Then the Riyadh staff brought out another round of tea, and a new calm seemed to settle over the group. For Barbara, the night and the sky and the music banished thoughts of texts and posts, though she was sure a few fingers twitched at not being able to take a selfie or post a video clip. Barbara wandered back to a previous lookout she had earlier in the day and peered into the alley below. Even in the dark, she could see that old woman was still sitting there, her arm outstretched. The beggar looked up at Barbara, and her eyes reflected green light like a cat's eyes. Barbara backed away in shock. It was as if she'd seen a jinn. If it was anything, she thought, it must be a jinn, those spirits that share the world with humans. They were said to be thick and close in Morocco. They'd been hearing about the jinn throughout their trip. They were advised to be careful when opening closets and stepping into houses and even into rooms. At such time, they were told to utter God's name for protection. Barbara called Maureen over, and they peered into the alley. Again, the green eyes glowed in their direction. Maureen let out a scream, and the tour guide Ibrahim dashed over. "Look, down in the alley, that old woman. She's got green eyes, and they glow." For just a moment, a look of fear appeared on Ibrahim's face, and he muttered, "In the name of God." Barbara could see that he was willing himself to calm down. By then, the group knew that he was incredibly superstitious. He had told them lots of Moroccan lore about the supernatural. He pulled his shoulders back, stepped to the edge of the wall, and leaned over. He jerked his head back, then looked at the two women in alarm, and without saying a word, he ran down the stairs. A minute later, the women watched as Ibrahim and Khalid appeared in the alley and approached the old woman. Ibrahim shouted at her, while Khalid gripped Ibrahim's shoulders and pushed him back. The woman stood up in the middle of the alley and started talking back, waving her arms dramatically. They were speaking in lightning-fast dialect. No one could make out any words. After a few exchanges, she seemed to calm them down, and it looked as if they'd come to an understanding. They gave her some coins and left her alone. "Wow, I wonder what her story is," Barbara said. "I've never seen Ibrahim so freaked out." Laying in bed that night, Barbara was grateful that her room opened only onto an interior courtyard, not onto the alley. Yet she pitied the old woman and wondered if she still sat there, all alone, and if she had a home at all. Thank you for letting me share a little bit about the story, The Sons of Fez, Moroccan Time Travel Adventure. You can get it on any e-tailing site, the standard sites. This is my second book. My first one is set in Saudi Arabia, A Caravan of Brides. It's women's fiction. This is such a great opportunity. I thank you, Terry, Elaine, and Anne, for everything you've done to bring us all together today. And I have two giveaways today, an ebook copy and a paperback. And I look forward to watching everyone else. And thanks again. Hope you enjoyed the story.